Storing data locally is a task which has to be done by almost every app. Maybe you want to cache responses from a REST API, or you are building an offline-only app. In any case, choosing the right local database can make all the difference in how quickly you can develop the app and also in how performant the app will be. Hive is a lightweight and yet powerful database which is easy to develop with, and it also runs pretty fast on the device. Unless you absolutely need to model your data with many relationships, in which case you should probably choose something like SQLite or more, choosing this pure Dart NoSQL database with no native dependencies, which means that it also runs on Flutter Web, can be the best option. Hello, welcome to ResoCoder, where you are getting prepared for real app development by building better, faster, more stable apps. So subscribe and hit the bell if you want to grow your coding skills. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to work with the Hive database by building this simple contacts app, which will not really even store contacts, it will just store a name and an age of a person. So we're gonna have a custom contact class, which can then be converted to something which can be stored inside Hive using a type adapter. We're going to get to that in this tutorial. So we can have Jane Doe, age will be, for example, 40, and it's going to be added automatically to the database and it's going to show up immediately inside this list view. And then you're also going to learn how to update a contact or something inside the database, and also how to delete, of course. So we're gonna have a fully functional CRUD, which means create, read, update, delete application by the end of this tutorial, all done with Hive. And be sure to check out the written tutorial from the link in the description, where you can also find all of the code written in this video and links to the libraries. And also over there you can find the starter project so that you don't have to start completely from scratch. So definitely check it out. The user interface of this app is not all that difficult to comprehend. Like, there is just a list view and a form which can accept a name and an age of a contact, and then we have a button, and that's basically it. Just to spare you from writing this from scratch, you can also download the starter project, and you're going to be left with something like this, which is just a clean app. It doesn't even have the Hive package dependency inside the pubspec YAML. And the starter project, when we launch it, looks like this. We have a blank list view which contains just one item, and no matter what we type inside here is not going to be added nowhere, because there's not even the Hive dependency yet inside the pubspec YAML. Alright, so now let's go to that pubspec YAML and add Hive, and also Hive Flutter path provider, because we need to provide a path where the Hive database file can be stored, and on Android it's going to be different than on iOS. So path provider will allow us to specify easily the directory in which to store the database file. So all of this goes into the dependencies, but then also we're going to be using type adapters. So we have a contact class here, which contains simply a string and an integer. And with the help of a type adapter, we're gonna be able to very easily store this contact class or its objects thereof inside the Hive database. And the type adapter generates some code in order to store this contact in the database. And in order for the Hive library to generate code, we need to add a dev dependency to Hive generator, and also obviously to the build runner so that we can kick off the code generation process. Now, once we save pubspec YAML, we have all of the dependencies in place, so we can start working on Hive. We're going to start off in main.dart because Hive needs to be initialized before anything else can be done with it. The best place for initialization is inside the main function inside main.dart, because this runs before any widget is instantiated. So let's just convert this method to block body, and inside here we are going to say Hive. We of course need to import hive.dart package, so hive init, and this init method has to accept a string path. This path will be the path to the directory inside of which our app has the permission to store data on a particular device. And on Android, it's going to be different than on iOS. So that's why we've added the path provider library so that we can get the application documents directory without any hassle. So let's also import the path provider, and let's import it as path provider. Now we want to get the app document directory, so final app document is equal to path provider dot get application documents directory, but this is an asynchronous call, so we need to await it. So therefore we are going to make the main method also asynchronous and put the await keyword over here. And now we can use this app document directory over in the initialization of Hive, but also this is a directory type, so we need to get the path out of it. So let's just call path, and now we are good to go. Hive works with boxes. Before a box can be used, it has to be opened. And also, in addition to plain flavored boxes, there are also lazy loading boxes, and also boxes support encryption. But in this tutorial, we're going to focus on the basic boxes. That's because they're the most used ones, and also you can read up about the more exotic boxes from the links from the written tutorial. When you open a regular box, its data, whatever is stored inside that box inside the persistent storage, will be loaded into memory for immediate access. So just to demonstrate, and of course we're not going to do it directly from main.dart, but just for demonstration purposes, to open a box you call hive.openBox and you specify the name of the box, for example contacts, and then after you await it, you now have the instance of the box. So let's just put it inside final contact box. And now this box is opened for the whole app. So even from a different part of the app, even from a different file, or from a different widget, like for example here, the my app stateless widget, we can now call hive.box. We do not need to open it again. We can, but it's just going to return the already open box anyway. But we can just call box contacts. And now this is no longer asynchronous. Now we again have the very same instance of the opened contacts box, which contains the data stored inside of it. And also obviously we can add new data to this opened contacts box. So we can add, we can put and do all kinds of stuff to which we are going to get in just a little while. Now to keep the code clean, you should probably open the box only once and then access it using the hive.box method and not try to open it like multiple times. Even though if you do that, if we go to the hive.dart and go to its implementation somewhere in here, if we go to open box, we can see that if the box is already opened, it's just going to return the box which is already opened. So you can call open box how many times you want, but just for the sake of clarity in your code, you should not do that if you can avoid it. And also before the app closes or when you no longer need the box, for example, you navigate away from a certain page and you know that this box will not be needed anymore unless you go back to that particular page, you should also close the box. So let's do these things, opening the box only in one place and then closing the box before the app closes itself. Let's do them right now. Let's just delete this line, we're not going to need it. And a box should be opened before anything else which needs that box to be opened runs. So we're going to use the box from within the contact page. So before this contact page is built, the box should be already opened. And you could technically open the box from the main method and open all of your boxes in here, but that's just not a good practice because regular boxes, if they are not lazy boxes, and you can again read up more on them from the link in the video description from the written tutorial, unless they are lazy, all of the contents of the box So all of the data stored inside persistent storage will be loaded into memory so that it can be accessed very fast. So therefore, opening all of your boxes from the main method is probably not the best, wisest option. Instead, you want to open boxes per page. For example, inside contact page, you would open the contacts box, right? Or in this case, because we have just one page, we can also open this box from within the My App class. It doesn't really matter in our case. And to open a box like that, which is returning a future, this method, we need to use a future builder widget. So let's wrap the contact page inside a future builder widget. So I'm going to use awesome Flutter snippets for future builder. We're going to say that the future is the hive.open box call. So let's put it over here. Initial data, it's not gonna have any initial data, this future builder. And then the builder will, of course, return the contact page, which contains the list view and all of that. But we obviously cannot just return a contact page like this. We first have to find out about the connection state of the future. So as usual with future builder, we are going to first check if the snapshot, which contains the information about the future. So this snapshot.connection state is equal to connection state.done. So if the future is completed, which means that the box is opened, in that case, when the box is opened, we want to return contact page. However, there can be some errors possibly with opening the box. So we also have to handle the error case. So if snapshot.hasError, we're just going to simply return text, which will contain the snapshot.error message. So we are just going to convert the error to string. And otherwise, we're going to return contact page. And all right, Flutter, thank you for notifying me about Hive being not initialized. That's because we have not hard restarted the app. So once we hit this hard restart or Control Shift and F5 button, this error will be gone. Or actually we have to stop the app and restart it again. So let's do just that. All right, so here we go. But did you see that error for that brief moment? The red screen appeared because this builder, until the connection state of the future is done, which means that the box is opened, until that happens, this builder returns nothing, which in Dart's terms sadly means that it returns null. And even though opening the box really takes just a short time, we need to handle the case when the future is not yet completed, so the box is not opened, and in that case we still need to return some UI widget. So we're just going to return an empty scaffold. And now when we hard restart, we should not see any errors, and surely we did not see them, so that's awesome. All right, so we have the box already opened whenever the app is loaded, and in some more elaborate app, you would do this on a per page basis. So if you were to navigate to contacts page with a navigator, you would only then open the contacts box. And then whenever you would leave the contacts page to go, for example, to the home page in your app, you would probably want to close the contacts box. It's not a disaster if you do not do that, if you do not close the box, but still, why should you hold unnecessary data in the memory when you can release it? So that's why we're going to close the box whenever the My App widget is disposed. And for that, we obviously need to convert this My App widget to be stateful. And now inside dispose, we can either close only the contacts box. So we would say hive.box and specify the name contacts. And now we can use the close method. Or also you can do something like hive.close, which will close all of the boxes which are currently opened. So because we have just one box, it doesn't really matter what we do here, but let's just leave it at hive.close, which potentially can close all of the boxes if you have opened multiple ones. So now this Hive initialization and opening and closing of boxes is fully done. We have initialized Hive inside the main method, and then we are opening the box before a page where it needs to be used has the possibility to be even loaded. So that's cool. And also we dispose of all of the boxes where we release the resources from memory. Let's now move over to the new contact form, because inside contact page, we really have just an app bar and the list view here, which simply currently holds only a single placeholder list style, which says name and age. As you can see, it's basically a non-functional list view. And then we have this new contact form, which is a simple form which gets name and age input from the user. And whenever the button is clicked, this raise button, when that's clicked, we construct a contact containing a name and an integer age, and we call add contact, which is a simple method which currently only prints out the inputted contact data to the console. So if we input the name, something like John Doe, and age will be 20, and then add new contact and open up the console. So the output, or debug console actually, there will be written name John Doe and age is 20. So that's working as expected, but obviously inside this add contact, we do not just want to print out the contact information to the console, we actually want to add the contact to the Hive database. So let's delete this line. And now there are two basic options of adding data. Once we have the box, and remember we can get the box instance by calling hive.box and specify its name, so contacts. We're gonna need to import Hive package. And now once we have the box, we can either call put, this is the first basic option of adding data to the database, and we can specify the key ourselves. So for example, contact 1, and keys can be either strings or also integers. So for example, 1 can also be the key, and then input the value, which would be contact. Then the another option is that we can use the add method, and this will make Hive use auto incrementing keys. So the key will be now 0, then when we add another contact, it will be 1, then 2, and so on. So we don't have to take care of the keys ourselves when we are adding contacts. And unless you need to absolutely specify the key yourself, you should probably just always use the add method. But here's the problem. When we now save and run this code and open up the console, when we try to add the contact, so John, age will be 5, add contact, we get Hive error. Hive error cannot write unknown type contact. Did you forget to register an adapter? And did we register an adapter? Well, we didn't. That's because Hive out of the box supports only regular Dart types, for example, integers, strings, booleans, and even lists and maps. It even supports datetimes out of the box. But our own model class contact, Hive obviously doesn't have any clue how to store it inside the database. And obviously you could solve it by doing something like converting the contact to JSON, in which case it would be a string, and strings obviously can be stored inside the database. But Hive offers another option than just storing JSON strings, because you can use custom type adapters with Hive, and it will convert the data present inside the object to a binary format. So let's utilize this option which Hive offers, and let's create a custom type adapter for our contact class. Over in the contact.dart file, we have this simple class which contains only string name and int age. And to create a type adapter, you can either do it yourself manually, or you can utilize the Hive generator package, which we've added over here. and let this generator generate the type adapter for you. I think this generation is the better option because you can make some mistakes and it's really clunky if you write it yourself. I would say that you should always leave it to the generator unless you have some absolute reason to write it yourself manually. So let's import Hive. And over here, we're going to annotate the class with Hive type. So the class is Hive type, and then its fields are going to be Hive fields. And you also need to specify an index for each field. So the first one will be 0, and then the second one for age will be 1. There are some precautions which you should take whenever you annotate with these Hive fields and specify their numbers. For example, if you decide to update the field or add new fields, the numbers of the old fields should not change. You can read more about it from the written tutorial, which has all the links to the official documentation. In our case, we are not gonna need to update this contact class, but in order for this Hive generator to kick in, we of course need to specify the part of the file which will be generated. So it's going to be called contact.g.dart. And now we can run the Flutter developer's most favorite command, which is of course Flutter packages pub run build runner. And now we can just say build because we are cool with just one-off build. We do not need to watch this. And there are some problems here. So after reading through Stack Overflow, I found out that the newest version of Build Runner, which we are using, just does not work. Oh my, so it's probably not even the PubSpec YAML version, but it's this analyzer and PubSpec log, so whatever, just let's save that, and hopefully even after I change the build runner to be the latest version, hopefully it will run now. So let's hope for the best. Flutter debugging is really amazing. Awesome! I finally managed to build this, so if you have these kinds of issues, hopefully you do not have them, just change the version of the analyzer inside the pubspec.log file. So I hope you will not have these issues, but if you do, just do that and you will be good to go. All right, so now that we have this contact.g.dart, which contains the generated type adapter, we can now use this contact from within the new contact form to actually add it to the Hive database. But just generating the adapter is not enough. We also have to register it. And we can register it either for just a single box, for example, for this contacts box, or we can register it for all of the boxes inside the Hive database. And in our case, it doesn't really matter because we have just one box. So we're just going to register it globally. So after it's initialized, we are also going to call hive.register adapter and pass in the contact adapter, which is the class which was just generated. And let's also specify the type ID. So starting from 0 will be the type ID, and then another type ID would be 1, 2, and so on. Now that we've done that, we can go to the new contact form and add a new contact to the database just like this. And actually, just to make this a bit more clean, let's extract this to a new final variable, which will be called contacts box. And we're going to call contacts box.add here. So whenever the button will be clicked inside the form, we're going to construct a new contact object and pass it over to the add contact method, which will in turn add the contact to the Hive box. But of course, doing just this would be of no use to us because we are currently not reading the contacts. So even though, after I hard restart the app, so even though we can add a contact, John and age will be 20, and we are no longer going to get that nasty exception, nothing really happens in the UI. So let's now go over to the contact page where there is the list view and let's read the contacts from the Hive database. So inside this method build list view, we're going to get hold of the contacts box. Final contacts box is equal to what else than hive.box. So let's import Hive, and we want to access the contacts box. And now inside this list view, it will no longer hold just children, but it will be instead a list view builder. So let's cut out the list style, and we're going to call listview.builder, and a builder needs to get its item count specified, and we can find out the number of stored contacts or some other entries from a box by calling the box.length. And now for the list view builder, so item builder actually, which will grant us a context and index. Inside of here, we're going to return the list style. And now we want to somehow populate the title and subtitle with the data from the contact box for the contact on the particular index. The simplest way to retrieve data is by calling contacts box dot get, which takes in a key. And because we are using auto incrementing keys, if you remember, inside the new contact form, we call add, and it writes here that this saves the value with an auto increment key. So because of that, we should be just able to specify the index as the key, right? But of course, we are not going to specify directly inside the text. Instead, we want to get the contact out of the database. So we're going to create final contact, and that will be equal to contactsbox.get. And then we want to cast it as a contact, which we need to import, of course. And then we would just pass contact.name to the first title text view, or text as it's called in Flutter, and then the subtitle would be contact.h, right? Of course, converted to string. So we could do that, of course. If we now take a look at the app, it shows John 20, which is the contact which we have added previously to the database. So it works, but it's not the safest option. Although we're currently only adding a contact to the database by calling add, what if we added a contact calling put? And we would put a new contact in there, specifying a custom key, for example, 123. Or what if we delete the contact? What will happen then? Well, in these cases, as soon as you do not just use auto increment keys all the time, but you also put some data in there and delete other data from the box, you will no longer be able to rely on the fact that the keys are just incrementally increasing for each contact inside the box. Because after all, we could have just two contacts in the database, but the first one's key could be 0, and the second contact could have the key of 1000. There is another way to access data from within the box, and that is the getAt. GetAt doesn't have a key argument, instead it accepts an index. So let's talk about the difference between key and an index. In a way, Hive works sort of like a map, which can be accessed with keys, which you can specify and customize to your liking, but it also works in a way as a list, where every new item added to the Hive box has an index which is incremented. Just like when you have two entries inside a list, one cannot have the index of 0 and the second one next to it cannot have the index being 1000. Indexes or indices in a list are always incremented gradually. And this is the same for Hive boxes. So the bottom line is you should not rely on keys and indexes being the same. And unless you absolutely need to get the value by its key, you should get it by its index, especially from somewhere like item builder of a list view. All right, so let's just hard restart the app to be safe. And when we now add another contact, so Jane, age will be also 20 maybe, and add new contact, nothing really happens until we hard restart the app again. and now we have both John and Jane. So what's going on? Well, of course, we are adding new contacts to the database, but those contacts are not automatically being read from the database, because reading from the database currently happens only when the list view is built. And this happens only when this contact page is built, which happens only once. That's why Hive provides a watch method, which you can call on a box. So for example, contacts.box.watch. You can optionally specify a key if you want to just watch specific keys inside that box. But if you want to watch the whole box, you can just specify watch and do not add any keys there. And now we can listen to it and do something else with it, because watch returns a stream. And of course, in Flutter, you can use a stream builder to work with streams. And this is actually plenty enough if you work with some proper state management, for example, with block, where you do not expose boxes directly to the UI. However, if you are doing some just simple state management like here, where you are basically accessing the boxes directly from the UI, and you should not do that in your production apps. If you want to learn more about that, you can check out the full free course from the card in the corner, where you are going to learn about clean architecture. But if you are really just hacking some app together and you want to expose boxes directly to the UI, you can use a watch box builder and not bother with creating stream builders and working with raw streams. We're going to use the watch box builder to wrap this list view. So let's do just that. We're going to cut out this list view and instead return watch box builder. This comes from the Hive Flutter package, and we need to specify the box, the builder, which grants us a context, and the box, so contacts box. Let's just paste quickly this list view builder into the builder of the watch box builder, too many builders at once. So the box should of course be contacts. So let's put it in there. We can now delete this contacts box final variable. And of course, let's change the return type of the build list view method to be just widget. And now after we remove some unneeded commas and semicolons, we have it working. Now, whenever any kind of a value changes inside the contacts box, this watchbox builder method will be triggered, which in turn will rebuild the whole list view. So now, if we go to the app and add a new contact, so contact age will be 1, add it, we can immediately see it displayed inside the list view. Now the last part of a CRUD application is updating and deleting. We're going to perform these updates and deletes using just simple buttons inside this list style for a contact, because we want to keep this simple. So let me just add trailing to this list style, which will be a row, which will have main axis size to be minimum, so that it just wraps the two icon buttons which will be present inside that row as children. Because whenever we press an icon button for updating, we're just going to update the contact with some asterisk added after its name. So it will be contact asterisk after it's being updated. So let me just quickly add icon button, which will have an icon of icons.refresh. And inside onPressed, we want to update the contact inside the database. Now, how are we going to do that? By taking a look at the contacts box, we can see that there is no real update method. Instead, what we can do is basically override a contact on a particular index or a key. And since we are working with indexes here, we're going to say put at, because put at overrides a contact or adds a new contact on an index, but put adds a new contact or overrides a contact on a key. So we want to use put at. The index will be index, which we get from the list views builder, and the value will be simply the same contact which is already present in the database, but we're going to create a new instance of it and just change the contact's name. So let's interpolate that, and the name will have an asterisk added to it, and the age will remain the same. So contact.age, nothing changes there. Or let's actually just add 1 year to it just for fun. So now we can see that we have the refresh button, and when we press it, John will be 23 years old, 24 years old, and he also has 4 asterisks added after the name. And similarly, we want to have a button or an icon button for deleting the contact. So let's just paste it over here. It's going to have icon delete. And deleting a contact is very simple. We again can use either delete to delete the contact on a particular key, or we can also use delete at. You can also delete all or delete everything that the Hive is storing from disk, but that is not cool, so you should avoid using that method, or use it with caution rather. But in our case, we want to delete at a particular index. And once we do that and go to the app, we can delete, for example, Jane. All right. Although we have all of the CRUD functionality implemented in this simple contacts app, there is one more thing worth talking about when it comes to Hive. That's compaction of boxes. I will quickly read you what is written inside the official documentation. Hive is an append-only data store. When you change or delete a value, the change is written to the end of the box file. This leads sooner or later to a growing box file, and Hive may automatically compact your box at any time. So basically, our box, when we delete a value or overwrite a value, has some holes, for the lack of a better word, inside of it. And these holes take up space, and they need to be compacted so that there will be no more holes inside that list, which is present on the persistent storage. And it's completely fine to leave it up to Hive itself. You do not need to override the compaction circumstances, but also, just so you know, you can in fact change when the Hive database is being compacted. This could be useful, for example, if you have a lot of data stored inside the database and you do not want Hive to compact on app launch, for example, because you could freeze the app, and you definitely do not want to freeze the app when it launches, because that's just poor user experience. But if you absolutely need to override the compaction logic, you could do it, for example, before the Hive database is closed or before the box itself is closed. But because we are closing the whole database anyways, let's just do it inside the dispose method of our my app widget. So inside of here, let's just call Hive, and we need to compact a particular box, so contacts in this case. And let's just call compact, and that's it. So now we have added our own custom point at which the box should be compacted. But in addition to this, we can also change the conditions under which the compaction will happen. These options which we are about to write obviously do not affect your own custom compaction points, but if you leave it up to Hive to compact, you can modify when it compacts. We can modify that while we are opening the box. So here inside the future builder, when we open the box for contacts, we can also specify compaction strategy, which is a Boolean returning method, or higher order function to be more precise. It accepts an integer total and also integer deleted. So of course, those are the numbers of entries. One is for total number of entries and one is for deleted number of entries present inside the database. So that's basically the amount of holes inside the list. And for example, we can say that it should only compact when the amount of holes of the deleted entries is greater than 20. So deleted is greater than 20. By default, the compaction strategy for Hive is 60, and it also has some other logic in there which looks at the ratio of total entries and deleted entries and decides whether or not to compact based on that ratio. But you can of course go to the source code of Hive because it's completely open source on GitHub, and links are in the written tutorial to which you can get from the link in the video description. You should just know that you can absolutely override everything that Hive does, so it's really awesome that it's so customizable. To go through this tutorial at your own pace once again and to get all of the code and all of the links, check out the written tutorial available from the link in the video description. In this tutorial you learned about Hive, which is a performant and easy to use database for Flutter. There are constantly new things added to it. For example, the author Simon Layer is working on adding queries to this database because currently it doesn't support queries, but they are on the horizon. They are gonna arrive pretty soon, or they actually may be already in there if you're watching this a bit later. And so if you do not want to miss more tutorials like this, including the one on queries in Hive once they come out, definitely subscribe to this channel and also join the notification squad by hitting the bell button to make sure you grow your Flutter skills, because here on ResoCoder I am determined to provide you with the best app development tutorials and resources out there. If this video helped you with understanding Hive, how to use it, and also if it helped you with debugging these stupid build runner errors in Flutter by changing the pubspec lock analyzer version, give this video a like and also share it with other developers who will surely benefit from this too. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, and see you in the next video.